Well, hey, thanks so much for checking out the Selah Leaders podcast. My name is Nick Newman, and it is such an honor to be with you today. I'm with our podcast god, Darren, Mr. Clean Zook.
Mr. Clean, yeah, well, it's a little stubbly, but it's episode 8.
Episode 8.
Episode 8.
8 is the number of something.
7 was the number of completion, but we clearly can't stop at 7 episodes for season 2.
No. And we also, at some point, don't we have to do a bonus episode because we didn't ever post episode 11 last season?
Yeah, there definitely needs to be a bonus episode at some point, so we'll have to figure out where to squeeze that in this year.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, listen, we're super excited today because we're going to hit a topic that I think is like really foundational for leadership, but it's a tremendous pain point for a lot of people.
It's uncomfortable.
Yeah, what's uncomfortable?
Hard conversations.
Listen,
Yeah.
if you're in leadership, hard conversations are going to come your way, right? And I think, though, we have made them too abnormal.
Yeah, that's fair.
Not every conversation you have is a hard conversation. But when we keep delaying things over and over and over again, we put it off for so long.
Yeah.
And then it becomes this big, long, drawn-out thing. I think one of the healthiest things you can do for your organization is implement consistent feedback so that hard conversations aren't really that hard.
Yeah.
Like, I think hard conversations are sometimes hard because we've made them that way. But the reality is, it's as easy as, and I know you're going to laugh because you've heard me say it a bunch, like, hey, can I borrow you in my office for a few minutes?
Yeah. It's like some of the most, I know what this is going to be. And then you're trying to figure out, like, okay, so what particular topic are we going to talk about? You know, where did something go wrong? You know, because, you don't like that. One, I think for most humans, you're not included in this, but like we don't enjoy confrontation.
Yeah.
You love it.
I do.
But I think for most of us, we don't enjoy confrontation. I think, especially because, God built most of us to be relational people. And we're meant to be around each other. We're meant to do life in community. And so this idea of having a difficult conversation with someone doesn't come naturally.
Yeah. No, it doesn't for a lot of people. But hard conversations, I think most organizations are 1 or 2 hard conversations away from actually experiencing breakthrough.
Yeah, that's good.
Like, there's probably somebody on your team that you've been avoiding. There's probably some problem that you haven't addressed yet because you're concerned it's going to hurt feelings.
Yeah.
There could be something that you're still doing that's not working, but no one's willing to touch it.
Mm-hmm.
And if you just have some hard conversations, then you're actually going to get breakthrough.
Yeah.
You're going to experience some health and really some new life in it, because no one loves walking on eggshells. And I believe it's unfair to some people that you lead for them to not know why you're frustrated with them.
Yeah.
They can tell a difference.
Yeah.
They know you're sitting on something.
Yeah.
Like they can tangibly feel the fact that you're not addressing something with them because it's shifted your demeanor, it's changed your perspective, like it's moved all these things around. And so I think you owe it to people on your team that you're leading to be willing to have hard conversations.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I think there's so many of us that we avoid it. We avoid it for so long at times that it can create, kind of like an unseen barrier between us. Like, and to your point, other people see it. And you and I have had a couple of conversations specifically around how to deal with some of these conversations. I think the other big thing too is you have to have relational equity with the people that you're leading. You have to understand, hey, what's going on in their life? Is there things that can potentially lead to some of the challenges you're facing? And some of that's what we're going to unpack today. But I think, it is so important for us to really make sure that we know the heart of the person that we're leading, and ultimately, what could potentially be causing some of the issues that we're encountering.
Yeah, so I'm going to give you 4 A's. This is kind of the process I
Quad A's.
Quad A's, yeah. I mean, I'm a pastor, right? So they all have to start with the same letter.
It's true.
But you know, these are my go-tos for hard conversation, and it really gives me a good framework to make sure I do them the right way. And so the first one is assess your frustration. Not every problem you experience in your organization is the fault of another person. If you are always mad at everybody else on your team and you've never stopped to take a look at yourself, you are missing out on a great opportunity.
So true.
I mean, it is very prideful for us to think everybody else on our team has issues except for us.
Yeah.
And so what I found is when I assess frustration, I'm not just going, man, I'm mad about this situation, or I'm mad about the way this happened. I'm going, why am I mad about that?
Yeah.
Like what makes me frustrated about this particular situation? So if an event, let's say some balls got dropped on this event, I'm not mad that the event didn't go well. I'm mad that it potentially harmed the reputation of our church.
Sure.
I'm mad that it made volunteers on our team not feel like their time was honored.
Yeah.
I'm mad that we didn't put our best foot forward, or I'm mad that we didn't execute on the plan that we actually put in place.
Sure.
The event is not the problem. It's something else.
Yeah.
And when you assess your frustration, it gives you the opportunity to do a deep dive into some of those things. But there's also been times where if I'm assessing even an event like that, are there selfish reasons why I'm upset? Well, this didn't just harm the reputation of the church. Like this is my reputation.
Yeah.
Am I selfish because I didn't feel respected or honored? Am I upset because I don't feel like an individual on my team is living up to their potential in life? Am I upset because they didn't live up to the standards of their role or their position? When you begin to assess frustration, you begin to trace what we would call not the limbs but the root.
Right.
Like, I don't want to trim branches. I want to get to the root of the tree so that I can figure out what the issue actually is. Because if there's something toxic in the root system, cutting off branches doesn't fix it.
Right.
The only thing that makes an unhealthy tree healthy is getting rid of the toxic things that are in the roots.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so good. And I think, as part of that, I think you and I've had many conversations of just, trying to figure out, even from within ourselves, recognizing, hey, what type of frustration am I coming at this particular situation from? Oftentimes it can be, we see more capacity in people that we're leading than they see in themselves. And that leads to disappointment for us, know, and to some degree, I think there is a level of selfishness that comes with it. And we have to have some humility when we're leading, but for every person, God created them uniquely different. He created them unique for a purpose. And so we have to recognize that, maybe some people's strengths are better suited in different capacities too.
Yeah. And I think in the, as I've assessed my frustration with things at times too, there are also moments where I realize there's not a need for a conversation right now. This was a instance, not a pattern. I don't have hard conversations about instances. I mean, I'll address the issues that are there, but when we talk about hard conversations, like we're not talking about an event that went bad. We're talking about the fact that you've noticed every event goes bad when this particular individual's in charge because they're not executing the plan that's in place.
Yeah.
We're not talking about like, oh man, you didn't respond to my text message. It's, hey, every time somebody on the team messages you, they can't get a hold of you. Right. So they're not singular instances. Because I think people get exhausted with that of like, all you do is tell me what you hate about me. And if you hate me that much, will you just get rid of me?
Right.
That's not what we're talking about. We're really talking about assessment for the purpose of, is this a pattern? Is this consistent?
Yeah.
do they have something going on in their life? Like, can we trace back? Maybe this is happening because something's going on in their personal life. Do we need to pivot some things?
Yeah.
So instead of me having a hard conversation with them and going, I can't believe this happened, you go, hey, I want you to know I've noticed some things that are currently on your plate that are getting dropped, but that's not how you used to operate. I know this season's difficult. I want to take care of you.
So what's a good practical way that you would recommend to people as part of this to maybe keep track of those things, or to make sure that, hey, like, is this a pattern that I'm seeing, or is this a one-off instance?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to notes.
Yeah.
I mean, the second thing is always prepare notes.
Yeah.
And you're going to prepare notes for the hard conversation that you're going to have. But I have an Evernote on my phone with the title of the note is individual, and each person in leadership in our church has an individual note that I am keeping track of everything.
Yeah.
Like, I am keeping track of, hey, I noticed this weekend they went out of their way to pick up a piece of trash. Hey, I've noticed that out of the last 4 leadership meetings we've had, they've attended 1. Hey, I've noticed that they used to be really heavily engaged with what we were doing on social media, and they're not anymore. Yeah. I mean, I'm tracking anything that I can think of.
Yeah.
In those moments, I'm writing it down, because when you're in a leadership role, I think we become aware of problems before the problems actually exist. Like, there are little things. If you look back at some of the problems you have right now in your organization, there were indicators that this was the direction we were heading long before we got there.
Yeah.
So I've found that, like, keeping a note of those things helps, and I can, I can track it. I can track, like, hey, so-and-so showed up to a meeting late. Hey, when I go to put that note in next month, they were also late last month. All right, that's something I need to watch for.
Yeah. So I want to ask you something, because I think this is something that probably there's a number of listeners and watchers who may be asking this, but, like, Scripture is always very clear to us that we don't keep a record of wrongs. How do you respond to that? You and I have had this conversation before, so I know what your response is, but I want you to tell everybody.
Well, I'm glad you do, because I don't remember what I've told you in the past.
Well, you talked about it just from the standpoint of, like, this is part of leadership. This is stewarding the people that God has placed under your care well.
Yeah.
And I think that's...
No. I know exactly where we're going now. Yeah, so I appreciate that.
Yep.
I think when you keep notes, I'm not keeping notes of wrong. Don't keep a record of wrongdoings is where you weaponize the wrong things against someone.
Yes.
The reason why I'm keeping a list of your wrongdoings is so that I can throw it in your face and make you feel bad and make you feel guilty and shameful.
That's not the right way to approach it.
That's not how we do leadership.
No.
Right?
Yeah.
When I'm keeping a record of things, I'm not just keeping wrongs, I'm keeping rights as well. And sometimes they're not even rights or wrongs. Like, hey, an example I wrote in my phone the other week, like, as I look at people on our team, and some people would go, wow, I can't believe he takes, he pays attention to that level of detail. But, like, I'll notice things with leaders on our team of, like, man, they've shifted on their social media from posting a significant amount about Jesus and Scripture and building God's church to now, like, here's the new thing I'm doing, and here's what's going on. Mm-hmm. It's not that any of this, that's not wrong. There's not a magic number of how many times you're supposed to post on social media about Jesus a week, but they're indicators that we look out for. So when we do that, I mean, I think when you keep a record, it's the only way you can effectively lead people, because when you sit down with them to address something with them, the first thing they're going to ask for are examples. Yeah. They're going to say to you, and because you've had those hard conversations before, where someone's come to you and they've brought you a problem. They've said, listen, you are just not approachable. And you go, okay, when? Yeah. And they go, well, I don't have anything specific, but I know that you're not approachable. Well, that doesn't honor you at all. Right. Notes, I've found, are actually one of the only ways we get to really honor people We honor their time, but we also honor the questions that they're going to come to the table with when we present them with something, because it allows them the opportunity to recognize that we're not just shooting from the hip, and it's not feelings driven. A lot of things in leadership, when we have interactions with people that we don't like, are feelings based. Oh, I felt like you did blank.
Right.
What did they actually do?
Right.
Like, let's write it down.
Yeah.
And you're going to find a lot of stuff is just miscommunications and things like that. But when the culture is healthy, you're able to bring things like that, have notes prepared, and it really honors people in the process.
What you got for number 3? Yeah.
Number 3, when you have hard conversations, you always align things to the mission and vision. You've got to be clear with the people on your team about how they missed the mark, not based on your personal preferences, but how they missed the mark in relationship to the mission and vision of your church. How they missed the mark in relationship to the culture and the values of your organization. And you need to be very clear on it. Hey, when you show up late to team meetings, it does not reflect the value that we have of being people of honor.
Right.
Time is the only thing that you can take from someone that they can never get back.
Yeah.
As people of honor, that surpasses just what we say with our mouth. It prioritizes what we do with our clock.
Yeah.
And so I want to make sure that you show up early.
Yeah.
Not 5 minutes before the meeting starts. If you're typically 5-10 minutes late, we're talking about you showing up 15-20 minutes early, right? Because we are people of honor. Those are clear examples of how that you've missed the mark and how we're going to realign back to culture and vision. And then I think when you do those and you realign them or align them to mission and vision, you've got to be clear on your expectations.
Yeah.
So with the example of like you're late for what feels like everything, right? Clarity is, hey, instead of you being 15-20 minutes late, I now want you there 15-20 minutes early.
Right.
Clarity is kind.
Yeah.
It is kind for you to be clear with your expectations, because I can't be mad at you for not meeting expectations that I've never communicated. So be clear on that stuff, and then when you do it, you paint the picture of how what these changes do actually help reinforce the mission, the vision, the values. And I think that's, in my experience, those have been the helpful things when you go to have hard conversations. Because if it's my personal preference, like unless, let's say they would be my assistant, I'm probably just going to set that to the side. Because even as the leader of our church, my personal preferences really don't matter. Now, they matter to some people on our team, but they don't matter in the grand scheme of things. With my assistant, they would matter. Right. But when it comes to the mission and the vision, those are non-negotiables for us. When it comes to our values, those are non-negotiables to us. So if something is out of alignment there, the best thing we can do for our organization is have the hard conversation.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, and I think, for us, I think we do a really good job. And hopefully, many of our church leaders that tune into these podcasts do the same thing. But, having some sort of we do discover, some sort of introduction to the organization, helping them understand what is the mission and vision of our organization, of the church. I think for most churches, hopefully, we're all aligned around the same mission and vision when it comes to, core doctrinal beliefs. But I mean, at the end of the day, for us, I don't think there's a single member on our team who doesn't know that, hey, our mission as a church is to propel people into an authentic relationship with Jesus. Full stop. That's
period.
it. That is that. Period. End of story. And I think that right there, again, there can always be preference misalignments that happen. but making sure that people understand, hey, like when we're not, giving things our all for God, we're not helping make sure that we're creating an environment, that we're creating an atmosphere, that ultimately people have that opportunity to meet Jesus. And making sure that we're aligned to those values is key.
Yeah. And then the fourth thing is action steps are required. A hard conversation without action steps is just verbal vomit. And you've had it.
Yeah.
Like I've had leaders just come and dump on me.
Yeah.
They'll walk into the room, they will tell you everything they hate about what, I've got to have this hard conversation with you, and they'll tell you the 17 things you do wrong, and then they just go, so what do you think?
Yeah.
Well, I think I'm a terrible person.
Yeah.
Based on the picture you've just painted.
Yeah.
That's not how hard conversations should go.
Yeah.
When I come in with notes, I'm typically prepared with an outcome that should take place based on our conversation. It's very rare that I enter into those conversations without one, because I'm going to let the conversation kind of move and grow and breathe as it needs to. I'm going to see how they respond and things like that, because how people respond to difficult things is really important.
Yeah.
So I watch for those things, but it's very rare that I don't enter into a conversation knowing what the steps need to be when we leave the conversation.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we'll just talk in circles.
Yeah.
And we've got to get to an outcome. And so when you have the hard conversations, you've got to identify on the front end, like what changes? What changes now? Are they staying? Are they going? Are they moving seats on the bus? Are they changing roles and positions? You've gone with me into hard conversations before where we've talked on the front end and you've said, well, what are we going to do? And I said, well, they're either going to stay in their role or they're going to move seats on the bus. How they respond to what we talk about will determine which way we go.
Right.
Because there's a certain level of leadership, especially within the church, where if you can't handle feedback, you can't lead at this level. Right. Like you've got to be able to handle feedback consistently.
Yeah.
You need a clear path forward with small action steps to get them back on track.
Yeah.
They need tangible ways to know that they win, because when you have somebody that doesn't like what you do, it's really hard to feel like a failure consistently. Your team feeling like a failure will not be effective for you to lead them.
Right.
So give them small wins.
Yeah.
And give them really tangible, easy things that they can do. I think you need to ask them, how can you best serve them in this next stretch? Hey, is there anything that I can do to assist you, to come alongside you, to be with you in this season? Because I am for you.
Yeah.
And so then at the very end of those conversations, I will ask them to repeat back to me what they've heard me say. Because I've found that most miscommunication happens in the gap between what I said and what they heard.
Right.
And so when we sit down and talk, and we'll talk about time, because that's been the example. I was talking to a leader one time. We were talking about time, them showing up, consistently late for stuff, and we got to the end of the conversation. Action steps: you're going to start showing up earlier. I want to make sure you got some, like, you're accepting these calendar requests and for meetings and things like that. And all right, repeat back to me what you've heard. And well, I don't show up to meetings on time. I'm lazy. Well, hold on. Did you hear me say that?
Right.
Oh, you didn't say that. Now, if we don't have that conversation, they leave the room believing that I said they were lazy. Well, I never said that.
Right.
So it's just a moment where you get to clarify.
Yeah.
You also get to remove any lies that they heard that were things that you didn't actually say, or and they may say things like, well, you're just not satisfied with my performance. Hey, Well, at no point in our conversation did I say that I wasn't satisfied with your performance. We're just talking about the fact that you're tardy sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's an issue. Do you feel like I'm not satisfied with your performance?
Yeah.
And we can go into dialogue, right? That's leadership.
Right.
And so I think, man, that end point for me is really important.
I agree.
Because I've been blown away by what people have thought they heard me say.
Yeah.
Versus what I actually said before.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I think my favorite part of that is action steps remind people you are for them.
Come on.
You're their advocate. And I think that's the thing that is so incredibly critical to take away from this conversation. Without action steps, all people hear is they feel beaten down, they feel discouraged, they don't recognize that, hey, there is a path to get back to, ultimately where we believe you should be as your leader.
Yeah.
So critical. So every episode we do a leader submitted question, and today's question I think is key, because when it comes to difficult conversations, sometimes they go both ways.
Yeah.
And this one in particular is, what are some practical ways to get better at receiving negative feedback from members on my team?
So I'll just share from personal experience. You and I had a conversation like last week. I had gotten some negative feedback from somebody on our team. And shortly after I got done with that conversation, I started like really thinking about everything, and I got really frustrated, not at them, but with me about it. And I had to hit the brakes for a second and go, hey, you're human. Mm-hmm. Sometimes in leadership, we play superhero for so many people for so long that we forget we actually have our own problems.
Yeah.
And so part of the way you get better at receiving negative feedback is not buying into the lie that you have it all together. Like, you are an imperfect person who has been graced with the privilege to lead people, and there are going to be things that you don't do well. I think it's a really unhealthy place to live, to say like, oh, I do everything right.
Yeah.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I know I don't.
Yeah.
I want to get better. No one likes their junk being pointed out, though.
Right.
And so you recognize that you don't have it all together, that there's areas to work on, and then you operate in humility. You have the choice to get angry and frustrated, or to just argue.
Yeah.
Like, well, I didn't do that. I've never done this. You don't actually know what's going on. There's no benefit in that.
Yeah.
What I do when people give me negative feedback is I go, hey, listen, I'm so sorry that happened. I'm sorry that what I did hurt you. I'm going to do two things. I'm going to take it to other people who are close to me, that I can talk with about it and see what they see and learn from that. And I'm also going to take it before the Lord. Yeah. And go, Lord, hey, is there something we need to talk about?
Yeah.
Is there something going on in my life? And so when you do that, I think that you stay healthy.
Yeah.
Because the difference between David and Saul in Scripture is the way that they respond when they're confronted with their own issues. Saul gets prideful. He blames other people.
Right.
He lives deceived. He's like, I've obeyed everything, and he didn't.
Right.
David's like, search me, O God.
Yeah.
Clean my heart.
Yeah.
Renew in me a loyal spirit.
Stark contrast.
Right. Very different approaches.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of my life, I want to be known as a man after God's own heart.
Yeah.
And so the approach matters.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Come at it from a place of humility. Yeah.
Come on.
So if you have any leader submitted questions, as always, drop those in the comments on YouTube. Send us an email at info@selahleaders.com. We would love to hear from you too. If this is making an impact, let us know in the comments or shoot us an email. We would love to hear how this is impacting you directly. As always, like, comment, share, subscribe. Let everybody know. Again, if this is something that's impacting you, if you've got some great leadership wisdom that you've taken away, share it with another leader in your life, and let us know how it's making a difference. We're so grateful to have you. We'll see you next time.
Hey, thanks so much for checking out this month's episode of the Selah Leaders Podcast. Darren and I are so grateful that you chose to spend some time with us today to check it out. But do us a favor, be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, comment, share it with a friend, family, or another leader in your life. It would truly make a huge difference.
Yeah, and if you'd like more information, jump over to selahleaders.com.